Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting here on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey for the last several years. Several years. So thank you so very much, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thanks to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the Halloween and horror genre, but does incredible commission pieces of any type. So, a little bit of a reminder, guys, tomorrow night's show, new time, moves down from 9 p.m. to 8 p.m. starting tomorrow. I will set a little reminder for you all. I'll remind you again at the end of the show, but just maybe mark your calendars for the new time. Tonight, really been looking forward to tonight's show, let me tell you. And I know you guys as our audience just loves the topic as well, because we do get a lot of requests for it. So I'm really pleased about this. So we welcome for the very first time, Christopher Sansone. I hope I really pronounced that properly. Anyway, he's a certified past life regression therapist and former teacher of the Hoffman Quadrinity Process. And his work on past lives will astound you all, I have no doubt. And we're going to be talking about his new book, Longing, A Pilgrimage to Your Quiet Power Within. We're going to be discussing past lives, past life regressions, how trauma and karma can be carried forward, ancestral healing. And there's so many things we can touch with on this. And I know I've had so many questions in the past about it, and I know it's going to be a wonderful show. So without further ado, let's welcome our very special guest. Hello, how are you?
Well, I'm done well. Thank you, Michelle. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amelia,
Hi, Christopher.
right?
How are you? Yes.
Good, thank you. Yeah, Paisano. You knew she properly pronounced my name when Michelle said it, right? I saw
No,
your nod.
Michelle pronounced it correct. I went like this, but I didn't know if she could see me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'm on a roll today.
Mercury retrograde. That's all I'm saying.
I know. It's a thing. So I just want to put up the cover of your book. So this is your new book. And we're going to be talking a little bit about this tonight. I'm sure it's just going to all come in. I've read the book. It's an amazing book, and I thank you for that. And when I was reading it, I kept thinking to myself, this is things I have been experiencing and asking myself from the time I was a child. And feeling the void. I think I was 5 when I started feeling that something wasn't right. And it sort of spiraled from there into adulthood and even into this very day as to the whole journey. So I think people will really resonate with this if they're having these same questions. So past life regression, how does one just decide to get into past life regression?
Because he had an experience of it that was highly beneficial to my life. Okay. May I give you a little background on that experience?
Oh, humble beginnings. You go crazy. The show is yours.
Oh, thank you. So the thing was, you mentioned the Hoffman process. I had experienced the Hoffman Quadrinity process twice. It's an immersive 1 week retreat, really about disconnecting from the need to live out the habitual ways that we learn as children, primarily from our caregivers, be they mother and father or grandmother, whomever had raised us. And then there's this aspect to it where we turn the corner and we connect to spirit, and we leave on that high note of having that deeper connection. So I went through it twice actually, as part of my teacher training, and once, of course, as an initiate into the process. I I had found that there was so much work that I had done, accumulated, not only those two processes, but then also the one-on-one therapy that I had received, neurofeedback that I went through, a lot of good work, excellent folks that delivered these services, and I was very committed. So I was in therapy, for a long period of time, and I still had these lingering things that were not answerable through these other modalities. And they were keeping me up at night, literally, insomnia. And so I said, well, what the heck? I'm going to try this past life regression. I had been reading about it in the psychology literature, thought I'd give it a try. And there was an expert here in town, Kelly Barrett, who walked me through actually two sessions, and voila, it unlocked so much of what had been disturbing me over those years that I was able to get to, and kind of, little small dives, never the deep dive that I experienced in past life regression. And so then after that, I said, you teach this? Yes, she does. She has a certification track. So I went through the Boulder Hypnotherapy program, and never looked back. Found it to be tremendously helpful, and those that I work with find it as well. I've never had a person that's gone through an experience with me that said, so blase. Didn't
Blase.
it was,
I love that one.
yeah, yeah.
I know. I love that. I mean, I think people don't realize that this is a really big thing. I mean, even the CIA apparently, declassified some documents on life after death, and they talked about reincarnation and NDEs and
Yes.
children's programs, and this isn't just something, one of those, just, you can't fluff it up. Basically, oh, it's just one of these metaphysical things. Like, this is a
No.
serious thing.
I couldn't agree with you more, Michelle. And my slant is always, where's the literature, where's the research, and that, as I mentioned prior, that's what hooked me into this probability that this could help me. This has been a research topic for well over 50 years, so it's not like it just popped up. But mainstream psychology people, or mainstream psyche, I should say, people are generally cautious. And when I mention my work that I do, I'm a spiritual coach and such, I often, 7 out of 10 times get the deer in the headlight look, and people, I think, are frightened of it, or at least what do I say, uncomfortable. But as I say, the research has been happening for well over 50 years. Roger Wilger's one of the early one. He was a Jungian psychologist. Michael Newton, also a PhD psychologist. Brian Weiss, who was head of Yale's medical ward, psychological ward. He's a psychiatrist. And none of them set out to find it. It found them through their clients. Their clients were having these abnormal experiences while under hypnosis that could not be explained by tracing back to childhood or other traumas in their lifetime. It was just too profound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like this frou-frou thing.
No, it's not.
Because I you know what it is, and I tend to ask myself, because there's so many, and there's incredible mediums out there, and there's some that maybe aren't so incredible, and that will charge boatloads of money and give you something that maybe it's hard when you can't validate it. How do you validate it? There's something behind the PhD initials where they're like,
Mm.
well, okay, you have a doctorate, so you know what you're doing. And some of these mediums get a really bad rap because some of them are really good.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
yeah. So I wonder if it's that stigma, however, that sort of puts a damper on the
Yeah, I
belief a
think
little bit.
so. It's kind of fascinating. And people can exaggerate it. But it's actually pretty difficult to exaggerate some of these stories because they are so profound. Um, that said, normally what comes into a past life regression session isn't like, a peaceful scene in the kitchen with grandma making bread, or, out taking a stroll with dad and mom, or, fishing with uncle so on. It's not that kind of easy stuff. It's the big stuff that will come through only as ready as the person is to receive it. So I've never had the experience where the person was overwhelmed by it. They were fascinated, they were intrigued, they were touched emotionally, but they weren't frightened by it. And that, more with my own experiences, I had that same experience of the fascination. Wow, how could this be? But it's a dreamlike state that actually explains so much of what happens in our lifetime.
Yeah. Amelia, do you have something to add?
I was just going to say, I'd be surprised if they were quite overwhelmed, because they come in wanting this experience and wanting the knowledge. And I feel like, anyways, for myself, and speaking of myself and people that I know that have done this, that you go in there looking for answers, and you're prepared for anything that comes forward. And as long as, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, as long as you can separate past from present, it's definitely healing.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I love that distinction you're making, Amelia, because if the psychotic mind doesn't make those distinctions
No.
between past and present, or imagination and reality, it's all collapsed. But most people have enough ego strength to do this, and pretty much early on if they're not, because I do an enrollment process where I this isn't like we're just going to show up and boom, we're going to go. I do some background work, and I also look at what is the presenting issue, what is it that they're really trying to get at that's disturbing them, or maybe intriguing them, or whatever it is that they're not at peace around something, and really getting to a deeper explanation around that. And most people that I've done this with are those that I've worked with in some prior capacity, so I know them. And as I said, with those that haven't, we check it out. We go into depth, and I can tell if they're ready or not. I've never had someone approach me simply out of fascination. It's always, I want to heal. I want to open up. I want an explanation for this recurring dream that I have, or this feeling that I just can't quite put my finger on, or a pain that I have. That by all other analysis, they shouldn't be having.
No, it's true. I think also people need to take into consideration, because once I started having at a young age, they felt like memories, because I was walking on cold cobblestone, and I could feel it. My feet, I actually woke up and they were a bit wet, like they felt wet, like damp, but cold. I'm like, God, that was just strange. But not knowing any better at the time, because I was considerably younger, but things start coming in, I think, when you're ready. But people should factor in, when you get that sense of loss, that someone isn't in your space that maybe you are accustomed to having there from another time, you would have to mourn all of those losses again, because it did happen with me on a couple of occasions, one specifically, and I mourned it, very hard. And when a connection was made, came to me in a visitation besides that, and it was hard to recover from.
Say more about the grieving and the recovery process that you experienced.
Well, you do fall into a grieving, and reality makes you set in there and go, okay, well, but when you believe that everything is essence and that essence returns and the soul returns, you realize also it's the physical that you're missing. But what it does is it makes you long for that other time past. And you think to yourself, oh my gosh, like because you feel like you don't fit in here. For some of us, and many people, I'm sure who realize, why do I feel empty? Why do I feel like I don't belong in this time or place? Why don't I fit in? And some people never find their one love. You know, they know that whether you call them a twin soul, whether you call them a soulmate, whatever, it's different for everyone. But the twin flame, whatever the case may be, is the other part of you isn't here.
That's interesting. And then from there begins the work, right? Because that's the irritant, that's the pain or the point of suffering that we enter into this, and we agree to enter into this work to do the work. Again, not for sake of fascination. That won't get us anywhere. It really has to be a quest for healing. And as you're describing, if there's an ache, something's missing.
All of it.
The grief.
It's like grieving somebody in your current life right now. And I mean, you could be grieving a parent. I mean, just think of how many losses that you suffer here and how it makes you feel. If you start having, and this is basically where I'm going with you and speaking with some of your people you've helped, but when you realize, you had this whole family, maybe children, maybe a husband, or just a lost love, and maybe a parents, like you have to go through that whole process again.
Yes. Because oftentimes it's unfinished from the past life. We didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have the awareness or the time or opportunity. So part of my process is to bring people back into that lifetime and really do a full life review around the specific presenting issue. What's going on? And let's look at that. Let's try to find the root of that. And then there's actually a meeting of that lifetime with a sense of finality, like this is over. We can grieve this lifetime now. We can let go. And there's a freedom to that. There's also, a whole host of other emotions that can come as a result. But that's the idea, is to reconnect with a sense of healing and finality to it. And so we enter one of the aspects of the experience is to enter to, let's look at his lifetime, who was there, what time, what time and where on the planet was at what point in history, what was happening in this scene now, so we get the bigger picture. We go to the scene, what's happening in the significant scene, and then we will at some point fast forward into the death of that lifetime for the sake of finality. So one of the questions I will ask is, how content are you with your life looking back? And a person may say, I'm fully content, or I left dissatisfied. I knew there was more to do, but I didn't know what. And I came determined to do something about it in my future, however that may look. But I had a very unpleasant, dissatisfying life. So after the experience of letting that go, we can say, okay, that was then, this is now. How do we move forward knowing the past? So that's one of the gifts of it. And we can recall those memories and bring them to mind. And they may be painful or sad or whatever they may be. They may be also very empowering. An experience of one of my past lives where I was a brute, and I then wasn't proud of it. But then it's one of the oddest things. When I was on a psilocybin experience, this character came into my awareness. And I was using his language and I was using his demeanor, and I was wondering, why am I doing this? I had no sense of past life at this time until later. This was one of the hooks that got me interested in this work. But it continued. And then there was about a year later when I did another psilocybin experience after the death of both my parents. The same character came in. I said, okay, I need to do something about this. I need to understand this. And I worked with a gifted medium who gave me instruction around this. She said, you need to draw the line and tell him this is over. This is your life now. And if he wants to help you, you can always call him in. And there have been times when I've done that. But he didn't stay a badass in this current well, I guess we wouldn't call it an incarnation, but his current state of being in spirit. He had a much more open and understanding heart. So he was able to empathize and say, okay, dude, you need my help. I'm here to help you. And that was a real benefit, because I liked this as power, but I didn't want to misuse it like he did, of course.
Absolutely.
Boundaries.
Yeah, go ahead.
Boundaries. Oh, thank you. I was actually, he answered my question. I was going to ask you about, attachments and coming forward and experiences that people may have had. Have you ever experienced someone who had issues afterwards that had to continue coming back so that they could release this attachment in order to move forward?
I've had an episode where a person was under the influence of a spirit attachment, and we had to draw the line. They had to make a statement to say, my life, get out. Because before that, they're in reaction to it. There is no sort of control or assertion of one's influence or a sense of agency. We're just getting pushed around, and the negative talk comes in. And one of the quick tells to a spirit attachment is it's non-ordinary. It's not like we are in our daily life, or we may have flashes of temper or sadness. And we, those that know us say, what is this? I've never seen this before. So that kind of thing are the tells, and that's what needs to be stopped. And so, listen, you're out of here. I know in certain terms, we can do it with compassion. We can say, listen, obviously you were needing some energy and you went to the wrong source here. I wish you well, but you don't belong. And one of the surest resources that we can call upon is our own spirit guides to say, I need some help here. I'm aware of this. But like any good spirit guides, they are not going to intrude unless we ask for help. They won't intrude. They will accept a call for help and assert when they can, but they respect our free will. That's what a spirit attachment doesn't do. It doesn't respect our free will.
Correct. That's correct. So, which leads me, I guess, to the questions of like ancestral healing, like in this type of healing with the carry forward, with trauma, karma, because I've come across in my work all kinds of people who are suffering from a lot of karmic stuff that has nothing to do with them per se.
So
maybe
how
it's
do they
come back from other lives, and such.
From other lives?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, there's always a gray area here where we can. I think it's important that we take due diligence and understand where this is coming from. So in my opening example I gave, about my own life and how I moved into this practice of past life regression work, there has to be some kind of this exhaustion period that you get to. You say, look, I've tried a lot of things, or I've seen this consistently enough. It's coming in my dreams. It's coming in my day-to-day thoughts, whatever it might be. But there's a kind of a permanence to it that seems to go way beyond child of origin stuff, that we all have. We all carry around neurosis from childhood, and it's our lifelong healing process, right? But once we understand that there's something else going on, that's when we can have a clear experience around past life regression. But if its origins were with mom and dad, we probably need to work with it at that level first. But if we keep tracing it back to mom and dad and it's not sticking, it's probably a result of a past life. Well, and who's to say those parents weren't there in our past life too?
That's what I was going to ask, because apparently we come back with our soul family, right? Our soul circle. Yes. We plan this ahead of time. So it's somewhere with somebody. Do we reincarnate back into our own lines? Or do we reincarnate outside of our lines?
Well, I do work around pre-life planning. So to that point, I'm quite convinced through my own experiences and those with whom I've worked and researchers. Some of the best researchers out there is Michael Newton. He's a seminal leader in this. Robert Schwartz has written some wonderful books, one of them being Your Soul's Plan. But the idea is to understand that we do, grasp that notion that we come in here with intention. We're not just sort of randomly born into Earth in this incarnation of a body and just kind of hope for the best. Some of us have very clear ideas and understanding about what we want to do in this lifetime. But most of us have some intention that's clear enough that works into our regular everyday psyche at some level. So knowing that we planned this, we decided to step into this machination of this body as a man or a woman, or to be born in this part of the world at this time and on the earth's plane, that is intentional. And the sooner that we can understand that all of us have some kind of purpose to fulfill here, and many of us have more than one, and some of us even have a life mission that we're pursuing. But when we get onto that, then that's where we're powerful. We're on our path. It may not always be pleasant, but we're powerful. And people talk about, about synchronicities and alignment. It's when we're committed to our purpose that those things start to fall into place naturally. We don't have to force. You can relate to that, right? At times when you really forced it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because that's the big question. Why do people reincarnate and keep coming back? Because I mean, if I had, a couple of dollars for every person I've heard in my life say, I'm not coming back here. This is my last time.
This is it.
I know, I've said it too. And
I've said it.
Right? And be right back.
Yeah.
Even looked into how can we avoid coming back. Yeah. I can resonate with what you just said, like so wholeheartedly and whole soulfully, because from the past lives, and I'm not going to make this about me, I just wanted to put this out there in case somebody's listening that has this feeling.
Yes.
From the past lives that I am aware of, I've always been there for children, and I still do that now, but even more aggressively. And I feel like every child that I've helped bring home, at times it feels like a child I couldn't in another lifetime.
Oh,
if that makes sense.
Say more about that. So those that you have brought home, right? You're talking about when you describe home, what is that's a metaphor?
They're home, whether it be helping them cross over, or whether it's because they're missing. I work with missing children. Whether it's to do with that, or I always find myself in that, even when I say, and I've said it to Michelle, I can't do this anymore. This is like really weighing on me. I can't do it. And then I end up just like, Michael Corleone, you pull me back in part 3, worst part of the series. But anyways, I feel like I can't turn my back on it. Like these are people, sometimes, not every time, sometimes they feel new, but there's times where I feel like I know these souls from another time. Like, could this be the one that I couldn't help? Could this be the group? Because I do have a life where I was running with children to protect them, and I do remember dying in that life.
Wow. So you've
being killed while I was trying to save them. So I
had this kind of commitment prior.
Several times that I know of, but I don't know if it's every life. I just know of these, lifetimes that I'm aware of. Yeah.
So when you have the experience of helping a child come home to their self, what is the emotions that you experience then or after?
Before or after I faint? I'm elated, but then I get angry with myself because why couldn't I always go back to why didn't I do this sooner? Why couldn't I have seen this sooner? So there's that human side that comes in and totally destroys. So I've been working on that, and Michelle's been a great help to me with that.
So that's really part of your determination. You really are
absolutely. It's
you
what
double
I
down
do.
on your commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I would
impressive.
never turn down a child or a family that needs help, and I never taken a cent for it ever.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, there you go, right? Wouldn't that be your purpose?
Well, we know why you're here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. Yeah. Yeah, way to go. Way to go. How
I
many
think why I
people?
don't want to come back is because of the pain when you can't bring them
Mm.
home whole.
Oh,
Mm.
But
yeah.
anyways, I just thought I'd put that out there in case anybody's watching and listening to you and they need your help because they feel similar
Yes.
experiences where they've encountered and can recall doing the same thing and having that recurring dream of
Yes.
that, what I call a recurring nightmare, because I'm
Yeah.
running and it gets longer and longer every time I have it.
Well, Millie, thank you for mentioning that. Actually, I wanted to do a little plug here for the listeners to check out a guided visualization, guided meditation that I have posted at Insight Timer, and it's about loving your inner child. And I move into a direction in that guidance of looking to the past, the parts that are childlike within us that are actually embodied as a child, and they can live in our psyche, and they're there, and we're with them, and we can love them, and that's the true sense of, or the start of self-love. So having that kind of retro experience, it's I know it's going to sound contradictory, but it's living in the present. These are aspects of me, or even embodied beings that I have very acute recall for. Once I get that, I can love them. They don't have to be crying for attention or disturbing me when I'm trying to sleep or concentrate or be with my partner. I can love them with intention.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm an overgrown child.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
I truly believe that if our soul has a purpose, it's possible, like what Amelia's talking about, that it is a consistent thing, life after
Mm.
life. Maybe that's the mission.
Mm.
If you're on this, let's say if you're on in the public eye, for example, maybe you were in a different way before. Maybe that's how people find you, is you have to
Mhm.
be on a platform. Maybe you are one of these orators that just have to be the ones to put things out there and
Mhm.
to guide people. There are many, many different reasons. But I guess the point I'm going is it doesn't necessarily have to be in one life. It can continue to carry forward.
I love that. Yeah, I love it. And I think there's certain things, certain quest. We could tie it to the hero's journey, the mythic hero's journey, which I
Mm.
refer to in my book Longing, about oftentimes we do become our own heroes. That's ultimately, I think, what we're here to do. And
Mm.
those themes repeat. And then what also it may be repetitive, and we may graduate, but there are layers of soul development that
Mm.
each that we're striving to complete. And we were joking, sort of, I guess partially joking, about not wanting to come back
Yes.
because maybe we just keep repeating the same kind of
Yeah.
gyration around this one lesson we really need to figure out so we can
Mm.
graduate on to the next level, and then not come
Neither
back.
one of us was joking. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say that, and then I always say, that I would come back as many times as I had to
Yeah.
if I had to help people. And I remember my son saying to me when he was like 7, he's very, very intuitive, and he goes, "Are you going to come back?" I said, "No, no, 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 I don't want to come back." I
Wow.
was pretty adamant about it, and I laughed, and
Yeah.
he goes, "I want to come back," and I'm like, "Oh, that's nice, honey." He goes, "I don't want to come back without you." "Okay, honey, I'll
Oh.
come back with you."
You're done.
Oh,
You made that
soulmates.
statement
Yeah.
in this present life. You're done.
I know.
Yeah, soulmates. That's beautiful.
I don't think
Yeah.
we really have a choice.
No,
I think it's
no.
Well,
all part of the vibrational, the frequency and raising the vibrations, and
yeah.
it's so much
Yeah.
bigger than us.
Yeah, I agree with you in part, and I do think that we all, even at the soul level, we have choice to come in here or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes, we want to exit early, and when that happens, that's you kind of blew the plan. But I think most of us,
And we're
yeah,
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the other door.
Yeah,
Back in.
Yeah.
yeah. But hopefully we've reached the ascendant master soul level and we don't have to come back. And that's one day, one time, one lifetime that's going to happen.
Oh, not anywhere near this one. Not for me. I have
Just
too much
help you
to
on
do.
that.
I know, right?
I can't
know.
even count into the future how many times I could see myself going through that door.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But the other thing too is we're so restored when we do return to the real, not this fake stage life that we have, but when we return to our origins, we're loved up in there and we're not judged. And it's not like meeting the the council of shame. We
Yeah.
get enough of that here. And
Mhm.
I've understood. I don't know if this is in your repertoire of understanding too, but there isn't shame and guilt and jealousy over on the other side.
Mhm.
That's a human thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
just stays there.
Yeah.
So, Christopher, what about those people that we meet that we feel we've known forever and you've just
Oh
met
yeah.
them?
Oh, that's a great question. We can call them soulmates.
Mm.
And oftentimes we have more than one soulmate. We can say, that's my soulmate. Well, soulmates can fulfill various functions to help us along on our life plan. And I think a fair definition of a soulmate is those who have our best intention for growth at heart, not someone who's going to oppress us or offend us or whatever it might be, or capture us. Those
Everybody's offended.
Or marry us.
We're in trouble. Yeah.
Or marry
Yeah.
us. I told
Yeah.
my husband the dog that we lost 2 years ago was my soulmate. I'm Morky that I had for 15 years. I honestly felt a soul connection to him and felt like there was a little bit of my grandfather who I was very close to. He was the only living grandparent I had when I was born. And I felt like there was so much of him in that tiny little fur body.
Interesting.
Because we had even though he lived in Italy and I lived here, my grandpa and I were really connected.
Beautiful.
Very connected.
Well, I have one for you around this. It was a client that I worked with who was having difficulty believing in herself about this next stage of work she wanted to do. She's a psychotherapist, very adept in understanding herself and so many things, but she couldn't get past this notion that she had this really great way of taking her work. I forget exactly what it was, but it was like a training that was going to be in a retreat kind of format, and she had been working with folks one-on-one, but she was really excited about it, but she just kept finding reasons to delay it, to not do it. And we had a session. No kidding. Her first incarnation was as a seahorse in the bottom of the ocean.
Wow.
She felt ridiculous telling me this. She said, "I'm so embarrassed. I don't want to be. I this can't be." And it just kept coming and coming. Okay, she went with it. I'm a seahorse. I'm in the bottom of the ocean. I can see everywhere. I'm calm. I can see it. It's beautiful. It's peaceful down here. But this is not where I'm meant to be. What she then evolved into, maybe it was devolved, but what she moved into was another being, was this Viking marauder in the early 1600s.
Wow.
And she said, "Oh my gosh!" So I go from this very peaceful, floating in the bottom of the ocean, wonderful, it's like the Ringo song, right? About all the fishes in the sea. It was just lovely. Then she steps into this marauder role. And she said, "Oh my gosh, it couldn't be more different." And so we went through both of those lives, put an end to each. She could reflect on them. And what she gleaned was that in the first instance, she was in touch with her clarity, with her peacefulness, with this fluidity that she had that was beyond human. And it was innate to the seahorse. In the other scene, she recognized her power. That she had, yes, a history of being robust and, in fact, dominant and frightful to others. But she had all of that within her. And then when she turned toward the next question was, well, after all this review, what do you feel about your work. And she said, I don't know why I can't do it. I'm going to do this. And she took off and started doing her work. So, and taking those next steps. But I think sometimes we get these things sort of gnarled up in our psyche. When I say psyche, I'm referring specifically to the subconscious aspect of it. And it gets sort of twisted up inside there. And it's all there. But then once we can come in and release it, then we get the full benefit of it. And that's one of the beauties of past life regression is we subvert the logical mind. We go straight to the subconscious.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Do you find that some people, again, going back to that process, once they're aware, do they have you had clients where it's like they just can't get back into their normal lives because they just, it's not even so much but the healing, it's the longing, hence your book, The Longing.
Yes. Yes. I haven't had that.
Yeah.
Usually when I follow up with folks afterwards, they say how profound it was. And they're my best spokespersons for doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I worked with a woman, and it was a long, we had a particularly long session. And after she came out of the experience, she said, oh my God, that was more potent than the psilocybin experiences I've had. And what I love about it too is it's grounded in you. You got this. You accessed your subconscious. You had the courage to go in and do this unassisted. So sort of influenced, it was by your own volition. And this is, I think, an important thing to remember. I might as well say it, or I might not track it as we go on. But we're always a choice during a past life regression session. Just like if anyone's had a hypnotic experience, hypnosis, the ego's still on board. Our free will choice is still available to us. We're just taking a rest. It's in the back. And that's part of the induction process, is moving one into that state of receiving and being open. And we need the ego to take a break, because we're not talking the language of logic of ego. We are going to what the ego considered to be completely irrational. And we're going to the subconscious, which is symbolic and metaphorical. We're going to that level. And it's confounding to the ego. But most egos participate with it. They support it.
Yeah. I don't know that I can be. I think somebody tried once, and I just the whole time being hypnotized, the whole time I'm going, you're definitely not going to do this.
Oh,
like,
we have
the person in my mind, you're not going to do this. And I'm fully aware of everything. It's kind of going, daughter's the same. Yeah. It's strange. So I don't know. How do you get past somebody like that?
Well, I think we'd have to start with, do you want to?
It could be the lack of control.
Yeah. How are you with control? How are you with being led?
No, I don't give up control ever.
There you go.
Christopher, I went for a Reiki session, okay, and she was trying to work my energy. My whole body started shaking like this. She goes, and she's like, and she'd been doing this forever. She goes, I don't know what to do. She goes, this has never happened to me. And so I had to go back 2 weeks later, and she says, okay, are you sure?
Like, probably scared to touch you. Can I say something as someone who knows you? I feel, and I'm not a doctor, I feel like you have so much to protect because you've had some extraordinary lifetimes. And you're,
mine.
Doctor, you can hypnotize me like this with a watch, and I'm like, I'm Pisces. I'm all cold, fast. I trust everyone. It's like,
and I'm
whatever.
Taurus. I'm Taurus too.
Go right ahead.
Yeah.
Well, that would be one of the first places I would be inquiring with you is let's turn to the protective part. And what is the armor getting you? And honoring it, not, let's bypass this thing, or let's work around it, let's outsmart it, or let's induce it, but actually to go directly to it because it's serving an important function in your life, I assume. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so solid or so persistent. So I would first suggest that we would go there in a gentle way that's gradual, and just work at that level. Just that, let that be the entry point, and where the true authority comes from. That's no.
No, knowing her, I feel like she's doing the right thing.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Not saying that you can't do that. I'm sure, I just feel like
not diminishing.
It's
your
not diminishing
being
you.
able to do it. It's all me.
Yeah. Okay.
When I say it's me, it's not you. It really is.
No. It's not. You're not breaking up or anything. So what I'm trying to say is, she has a lot to protect.
Yes.
That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Up to her, but there's a lot to protect. There's extraordinary lifestyles, like past lives that she's had and she's aware of. And I'm not going to speak for her anymore. I'm sorry. But yeah, I can understand why her body's doing that, because the back of your mind is saying you can't. Not yet.
I guess I'm weird about my energy too, apparently.
Yeah. I think it's a safer thing for Michelle, because she, like I said, she's very important. Not just to me.
Thanks, Bubbles.
I love you. But I feel like there's a time for everything, and it's just not her time to reveal some stuff.
I'm coming back, Christopher. I'm coming back.
Well,
and then she'll reveal it. So make sure you're there.
Okay. All right. Well,
any coffee house, you'll find her.
Well, and the deal I would make is if you would want to, right?
Yes.
Like this is something I would. You can never impose this on anyone, and get very far with it. But if you would want to,
I mean, for me, in my mind goes, yeah, this would be great. You could just find out more, and then there's like the stuff that's naturally come and so on. Like I said, it's been a journey, but there's always that you want to know more.
Yes. The curiosity.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And it's so intriguing that we want to just get in there and have the experience, and doing it with skill and care is so important. And really holding tenderness around what we're experiencing, and not to be dismissive at all.
No, and you have to be able to trust that person that you're with, because there's a lot of confidentiality with what we do. So it's a tough one when you find someone who you can trust, and it's not going to end up in their next book, or on television. You're turning the TV on, and all of a sudden story passes by with a fake Amelia in the background. I think that is a big deterrent for me. And I think it might be for other people, but finding someone trustworthy and highly credible and respectable, and the integrity that you have, I would definitely go into it. I wouldn't have an issue with it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
You might have to shut me up, because I'm one of those that could just keep going.
We're going, you would go there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's what I did too. Yeah. And then there's some point where I'm having these experiences, or either working with people and I'm referencing my own, where I'm wondering, am I making this up? And that's the logical mind talking, and there was one, the greatest answer I got to this came from my wife, Maria. I said, I just had this session, and I went through my own experience of this, and it just looking at family history. And so I said, it just sounded so knitted perfectly together that it couldn't be this lot. And I said, I don't know if I was making it all up, but I feel better. She goes, so what's the difference?
No,
it comes from the subconscious. If the subconscious suggests this and gives you a story to work with, okay, great. What the heck? Who am I to judge, right? It's coming from my subconscious anyway. And so I need to understand.
I agree, especially if you're, if it makes you feel good, it comes from within, then why not embrace it?
Yes. Why not?
This is what you're saying with the healing. Embrace it.
and embrace it, because there's so much more to the subconscious than the logical mind can ever take on. And if the subconscious decides to act in that manner, let's go with it. Let's see what beautiful healing can happen as a result of that. And we were talking earlier about repeating and making this determination not to come back again. But it really does beg that question, as you mentioned, about karma. What is the result of this lifetime? So we could say my karma from childhood, or what came from prior lives. And really, I think there's a seamless connection that I have been finding over the years, that those things that come in that are themes in our own childhood, in the form of traumas, fears, phobias, even attachments or loving ways of connecting or seeking certain kinds of people or connection or activities. All of that is infused by experiences in the past. And not to say it's all we're just repeating out of fate, but we're coming into this kind of understanding that we are influenced by the past. It is present, and it's getting not repeated, but it's getting played out in this lifetime so we can work with it. And so from that standpoint, I think it's really important to pay attention to karma, right? Just looking at things that come to us, so we can see the kind of that old groove that's been etched into our soul, and get to that point of revelation, like bring it to the surface so that we can work with it. And
so how do you know you're working with past life as opposed to, let's say, ancestral karma?
Well, that's a really good question. Well, ancestral karma would be what? Where we have
family lines.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. The inherited stuff. And in longing, I've referred to it as inherited lovelessness. I borrow a phrase from Pamela Cribby. And in that description is exactly what you're describing, the lineage of behaviors, defenses, whatever they might call habitual ways of being, or illusions that we develop around, and we create this sort of false self that most of us live by or really invested in and want to protect it. And that false self operates at the ego level. But once we can start to see that, I think I made that up, or I imitated what Father did, or I reacted to Father in a new way that kept me safe, or I mimicked. So I adopted Mother's ways. I adapted to Father. I went into rebellion against both of them, and I came up with my own version of it. But I'm still playing out that resistance, and it's all made up so that we can survive and belong. And that's our number one priority as children. Is we came into this world completely vulnerable. We wouldn't last a day without care. Whereas most mammals, they get up and go. And I've watched horses be born in a couple hours. The colds up and moving, the fillies trotting in the field. Not us. We're completely dependent for a long time, and so in order to get that intense care, both at a physical level and protection and security, protection from the elements and all the kinds of dangers and food and nutrients, we also need affiliation. Those horrible experiences or experiments that were done with rhesus monkeys in the 50s, 40s and 50s, where they put a little monkey with a wire version, and then another monkey baby with another wire version, but this one had terry cloth on it and a face like a mother. The one with the mimicked mother grew up to be more stable and could adapt more than the one was with the wire didn't. It didn't thrive past like a couple of months. It died, quit eating. Wow. So that's like us. We need that affiliation, and we'll do anything to get it, including giving up ourselves. So that's where the work begins, is what did we have to do to belong and be safe and loved as kids? And then those themes, I submit, are things that play out from past lives as well. So they get carried over, We set it up for it to happen again, and then we attempt to deal with it. And when we become conscious of that, we go, wait a minute, no more. I refuse to do this any longer. I don't know exactly the way out, but I'm going to find my way out.
Yeah.
And that begins with forgiving mother and father at the deepest level. Not
Breaking
forgetting,
chains.
but forgiving them so we
Yeah.
can be free. And that's what one of the beauties of this work is we can go into that really deep level that's happening, that preceded this life, that's getting repeated in this lifetime, and work with it with conscious intent and skill, and free from it. That's the beauty.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's just kind of a cool experience. It's
Right.
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 Let's take some psilocybin or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. No, but it is
Yeah.
true. You come in vulnerable, and many times you go out the same way.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. You come in. It's funny. My producer told me the story once. He goes, "How do you know? You come through the birth canal. You come out into this bright light. You have someone there ready to catch you. You've got your loved ones, your parents there. When you die, you go down a tunnel. You come out into this bright light. How do you know you're just not slipping back to the reincarnation door?" I'm like,
Yeah.
so you had to just ruin that for me now. How do we know?
As
Yeah.
someone who's been down those tunnels a few times, you
Yeah.
don't want to come back when you're in them.
Don't
Yeah.
want to come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I actually, by the fourth time, because this was 4 in one day, my mother's like, you need to go back. I felt like a part of her from
Amelia just kept trying to not come back. So she had 4 NDs, and her mom had to send her back.
it was
Oh, good. You
so
saw your mother on the other side.
not until the 4th time when she was
Yeah.
just like, okay, I've had enough. Like, I'm gonna tell you, mother,
You
you
gotta
need to
stop
get
this.
your butt back. And she, like, the way she told me, she held my hand and said, don't worry, I'll be with you in your
Beautiful.
work. And I didn't do that work then when
Mm.
this happened.
You
So I'm
didn't.
like, what is she talking about? What work?
Oh.
But yeah, I can understand why people are drawn to it when they're not supposed to, and they have surgery and everything. And I would want to regress that day to see what did I miss, what did I forget. I know how I got there, but
Yeah, well, I come back to this rather brutal existence compared to that.
what is it like if you have ever helped with to regress? It sounds terrible to say to regress someone, but someone's had a regression.
Yeah.
And they've had several NDEs. What is that like?
I have not, even though NDEs is one of my favorite areas, most intriguing areas to explore, I've never had a client that had an NDE.
Well, if you ever write a book on it, I'll help you.
See, Amelia's a frequent flyer.
I got started with
frequent flyer.
I got started with Kenneth Ring's research and was so intrigued by it. That was actually one of my early attractions to doing the spiritual work.
Right.
It can be great. This can be wonderful, and we can live this way and find this essence within ourselves. Maybe not as sustained as we do on the other side, but we can have touches of it.
Unless you ask Wayne.
Unless what?
Unless you ask Wayne, his experience was dark.
Oh, Wayne in chat. Oh, yeah. I mean, down like the river Styx with a guy with a hood and just like the whole the big bright light, everything. When he looked at you, all this light came out of his face. Crazy stuff.
Except the Grim Reapers at the gondola.
Oh, yeah. If you ever want to write, pencil that in, I'm sure he would tell you the story. But yes, it's different for everyone,
Yeah.
So totally lost my train of thought with
I'm
where
sorry,
I was going to put
that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I totally forgot. What about, I'll go to the next question. What about people who are, there's people who are targeted, and I think you make mention of that from other lives. And it follows suit. Every life they have, they're almost targeted because maybe they're a very strong soul, or maybe, oh no, that's just something. Yeah, this is something I had jotted down to ask you. Okay, I just got my notes mixed up. Anyway, It's believed that some very strong souls seem to be targeted by others. Maybe it's just something they've chosen to
Mm.
come through in every life to test them. Like, have you ever
Mhm.
heard of that?
And no, I haven't.
Mm.
I mean, I see people who live lives like that, and they seem to attract
Yeah,
the same thing over and
yeah,
over again, and
yeah.
then they got the incredible stamina to keep
Mm,
doing that.
mhm,
I have some, some people I'm rather close to that I witness and wonder how can they be that seemingly impenetrable,
mhm.
but just keep going on, just keep going on. It's not the experience I would want to have. But I guess at
Yeah,
some point you might want to ask yourself, why is this happening? And
mm,
that's the role of pain, right, in our experiences. I love what Paramahansa Yogananda said. Pain is the prod to remembrance. Is
mhm,
that does serve an important part in our evolution, that without it, we might just kind of go along and be just sort of status quo and never really change. And that's what most of us attempt to do early on, right? Is to soothe the pain in some way that
mm,
it ultimately doesn't serve us. Whether, those of us that get hooked on drugs or that avoid things at all cost, or fall out of relationship at the slightest point of conflict, all of that is to avoid the pain, but it will never go away. It usually accumulates.
mm,
um, and in my research for our yeah I'll call it research. I have 5 stories of extremely courageous people
mhm.
that
You share them.
yeah uh, people you'd meet any one of us have met, and I understand their stories of being quite extraordinary. And I first began looking for them at the suggestion of my guides. This book, that longing that I wrote, was not something I set out to do. In fact, I got started all in the wrong direction and then recalibrated in the right one. But what came to me eventually was, okay, so I wrote this. Much of it was channeled. I did my part of research around it too, to embed it in some kind of like relatable, well-known stuff like the hero's journey and the quest for omega that Pierre Desjardins talked about. And then I started reading up on sudden changes in life, and I looked at Thomas Kuhn's work around the structure of scientific revolution and what happens in our culture and how things change in the individual. Um, and one of my favorite authors was Ralph Waldo Emerson, who's kind of a
Mm.
hidden, he's kind of a hidden spiritualist. Right? We generally don't refer to him that way, but he talked about these calamities in life. And having this background as I did in post-traumatic growth, I said, well, I'm going to find people, pre-select for people who have had some kind of calamity in their life, and then it became a sacred outcome. And that's where I found the 5 people. So I was pre-selecting for that. And most of them, actually, almost all of them, I knew beforehand. A couple of them came referred when I told people who I was looking for. And the beautiful thing about it was that these episodes happened just almost verbatim, tracked verbatim to the hero's journey. A point of innocence, or going along in life. Things are okay. Good. One example I'll give is Jose. He was a friend of mine that I'd known for years. Doing great work in the world. Comes home, decides he's going to take a bike ride, heads out to the Stapleton area in Denver, gets on the track, starts hauling, goes under an underpass and does a head-on collision with another rider. Broke his helmet in 4 places.
Oh,
If not for the helmet, clearly he would have been killed.
Gone.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, in a coma for 30 days, hospitalized for 90, and even went out of his coma. He had very very little prefrontal activity,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he had an experience in the hospital of a lucid one. While he was in his coma, he had a moment of awakening when a person that he never saw again in his 3 months there came into his room, and she said, "This is good for you." And he said, "What? How could you possibly say that?" And she said, You are going to learn to live in the present, and the present is important. And gone. He never saw her again. And he kept mulling it over. And he said it was the one thing that he pulled from this terrifically difficult experience. Then afterwards, believe this or not, the other writer sued him for damages, blah, blah, blah. And they lost the case. So it was like this never ending event. But he said, I learned to surrender, to be present. I cannot control what cannot be controlled. I can only respond. And he became, oh my gosh, so like at peace, grounded in himself. And luckily he had a terrifically powerful soulmate in his wife that did so much of the, executive function around all this. But he was able to have that experience. And for him, it was indeed a sacred calamity. He had this awful experience, and yet he grew from it. And as I said, I pre-selected, so I was looking for people that had some kind of spiritual growth as a result of their calamity. And Jose, one of those.
Yeah. And you've also, had clients, one who was murdered in a
Yes.
prior life, and the doctor.
Yes.
The doctor goes back to what we were talking about, how we kind of maybe keep coming back in the same role.
Well, right. And, she's actually not a physician in this lifetime. She's actually a coach, teacher, therapist.
Okay.
But very similar in the sense of, being there for others.
Yeah.
Her story was such that it was, she too had this business concept. It was a really cool concept for working with the aging population. And she just couldn't get around to starting it. And by all measures, she was a person with high executive functioning. She could do a lot, but she couldn't get started. She got like her LLC, and she did a few of the basic things. So we went in, had this past life experience, and she was rather skeptical, but willing and open. And she came upon a scene where she was a physician, a male who was basically a chief medical officer in a unit in Britain during World War II that was treating wounded civilians and military. And in this role, he had to, there was no room for error. Every decision, the major decision was passed through every patient, was overseen by this physician. And so there was very little room for error. There was very little room for vulnerability. But he had a partner who could understand. And that was the one confidant that he had in that past life. Fast forward into this life, she makes the connection that, first of all, that partner I had was my husband in this current life.
Wow.
So, makes the connection. And then also realizes that the lesson she needed to learn was it's okay to make a mistake. It's all right. Things will end up okay. It is not life or death that I start this business. And off she goes into starting her business with interest in herself once again.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And the client you had who was murdered.
Yeah, that was a stunner. Usually, as I mentioned, I have an induction sequence that's fairly methodical, and I try not to ever skip a beat in that because every piece of it is important.
Yes.
So we move from understanding what the presenting issue is, and we move into a quiet meditative state, and then we find a safe place, their haven that they can always go to if things get intense. And none of that. We go into the induction, and boom, she opens to a scene where she's on her last inch of life due to a spear impaled through her neck.
Oh.
Yeah, she's in the last 2 minutes of life. She was in this war zone it was like mid 1700s, somewhere in Europe. She couldn't quite pinpoint it. But boom, and her dying thought was, because she was outspoken, she was an advocate for her people against the governing or the dominant forces. She was killed because she had this voice, and she was realizing that it answered a whole lot about her current life, about though she would speak up, she found it so difficult to speak up. And she said, well, no wonder. I learned that to speak one's mind is
Mhm.
death. It warrants being killed. I put myself at great risk. So she was able to put two and two together and say, well, first of all, that's not happened so far in this
Yeah.
lifetime. So and understanding that was the past, and it deactivated that energy in her now that she could take that into a place of reflection and learning rather than it habituating and making her life more difficult than it needed to be. But this was a woman that was running an organization with some 300 employees and doing intense work, and she plowed through it. But after this episode, she realized, okay, so that comes from the past, and I can trust that to speak my mind, to advocate as I need to advocate, is not death defying.
So it leads me to ask you this: is past life trauma or fears a memory? Like in this life, is it a
That is
memory for
such a
us?
yeah. I submit yes, that they are. And they're more than a memory. It's that karmic chain that we were referring to
Yeah.
a little while ago, that yes, over time, these sort of behaviors get linked into our soul's path. And it impedes our soul's development. It's like, we were saying before, we're going to get to the ascended master level and we're out of here. Not, hold on here a second. You got some work to do. And that work is those recurring patterns or memories or illusions, as I say, illusions of this false self that we create, and we agree to like acknowledge everybody else's false self, and we go along and we live in this illusion and these fixed states of being. Well, all that stuff accumulates over time. And if we don't heal it, it gets bigger and bigger and more powerful. So the memories carry over. And even if they're not recalled in the sense of like the bringing into the conscious mind, and we have a prefrontal cortex experience of a memory, it's living in the body. And the body is the greatest telltale. It's the greatest measure of our healing, is to tune in to how we feel, because the body doesn't lie. The mind can contort, our feelings can get mixed up and misdirected, but the body doesn't lie. The body has a genuine pain that is genuine. It's not manufactured.
It's
So
like having a fear of water. Maybe you drowned in another life.
you maybe
Like
had
there's
another
that
life,
fear.
fear of heights.
Right.
We're driving off a bridge.
Driving off a bridge.
Yeah. But I overcame it because I actually built a house and moved to where I have to drive over a bridge from Toronto to where I to get home.
How did that go the first couple
The first couple of times was really hard because my dashboard and my car was actually black the way it was in my vision. And I was alone, and I was like, I had a small sports car. I was freaking out. But then I always, for me, even from when I was small, I would always like, well, things just work out the way they're supposed to. They come out, they work out. And having 3 older brothers and a dad, it was always push the princess. You have to face it to cross it. In order to get through it, you actually have to go through it. Like facing that fear kind of thing that you always hear people say that, like with spiders.
Yes.
Yeah. But this was literally driving off a bridge. I still have fear of some bridges, but this one in particular, not anymore. I'm fine with it.
Congratulations.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So when you were moving through and being much more capable in dealing with the bridges, did it happen like you healed or you desensitized? Like you just got used?
I would say desensitized.
Desensitized. Perhaps now from this place of accessibility, like you're not as triggered. Maybe you heal.
I hope not. I mean, I was in Seattle in 2018, and I was on that water bridge. I wasn't impressed, but he didn't tell me until we were on it. So I didn't know where I was going.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
So that
Uh-huh.
was a good thing, and I could breathe.
Yes.
And this
Yeah.
friend is very much into everything spiritual and all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
Reiki and all of it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's good friends
Mm-hmm.
with Steve Burgess.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Then perhaps just a matter of inquiry or even suggestion is that you might go to the healing side now because it's not so triggering. You know,
yeah,
you sort of desensitize it. Where it's okay, we can go there. We're not going to run. So just a thought to have.
I will do that because I do work on it every time I go over to the border because that's a pretty high bridge sometimes, depending which one you're
Mhm.
taking across. But I do have a question for you.
Mhm.
Speaking of healing with people, um, do you ever have you ever had an interruption from the other side holding back the healing of that person?
Yeah, I've had that, and I respect that because there's sometimes where we're asking questions that are beyond the scope of what the person can tolerate. So
Okay.
I really perhaps am over cautious of that, but because I don't want anyone to have a violation. I want them to be able to say, I can pace with this. I'm good with this, and really defer to them for the pacing. So if I've had clients, for example, when we do the induction, and I said, now there's a cave before you. Part of my induction is to ask them to visualize a cave, and they enter in, then they move out through the other side, and they're not ready. They don't want to go into that cave. So
Mm.
we spend some time. We look around. We say they let me know when they're ready. I might nudge and say, "How's it looking from here? I don't want to go there." Okay, what does the cave? What is that cave about? What's the holding back? And let's just circle. Let's just consider for the moment. Not that we have to do it, but what is this about? And then most people will have that point of, okay, I'm ready. Just
Mm.
like it just happens. But I think it's
Yeah.
really, really important to not push.
Well,
I love the way you do that. Sorry,
Mm.
Michelle. No,
no,
the
so
cave thing.
what about spirits who, because for example, when I went through this grieving process, when I figured out one of these lives, it hinders your growth. And that was what was basically said to me at that time. It's just that you can't. And if you become aware of it, you will have to face it.
Hmm.
And that person from the past sort of went, "Oh," you know, and basically all I was ever told was, "Don't ever forget me." And for me, it was the grieving. So it did hinder my growth and my evolution for
Mm.
that one spell of time, which lasted several months.
Grief is a heavy experience that us humans have.
Yeah.
That and shame and guilt that can really stymie us.
Mhm.
And we have to grieve, we have to release it, but then we have to know how to move past it too, right? When it becomes we become indulgent with it.
Mhm.
um, and people can hang on to grief for lots of reasons. It becomes their identity, or they become the martyr,
Mm.
and and I get lots of accolades for being the martyr.
Yes, yes.
um, all those kind of, but in your situation, it didn't sound like that's what you were hooked to. What was your fascination, or what was your connection?
Oh, no, I mean, I was asking specifically because of Amelia's question, souls basically jumping in and saying, "Okay, no, this person isn't supposed to know this because it
Oh,
will
okay.
hinder the."
Yeah.
Yes, because for me, I mean, it's just in realization, I had always had a connection to
Yes.
this life, this person,
Yeah.
ironically, from a very, very young age, and when it all started coming forward, it was just like a wave, and you can't stop
um,
the wave. It's like a tidal wave. You can't just put your hand out and say, "No, no, you
yes.
need to stop now."
And the
No,
hey
it's
Yeah.
gonna
Moses.
yeah, it's gonna run you the heck over, and
Yeah.
then you've gotta deal with it.
That's right, and we really don't want it to be an avalanche. We want it to be something that we can pace with, and so that there's gentleness and protection through the process,
Yes.
and so that we're basically inviting these memories.
Mhm.
And then when people land, or when it lands with them, like people immediately feel that sense of coming back to wholeness.
Yes.
Like I'm in my body. I don't have to, spend overtime or excess energy trying to manage this thought. And they come out steadier than before. We don't want them upended. And so what we're witnessing is an unfurling, an intuitive remembering that we want to work with. We want to remember it, bring it back into our life so that it's not playing with us. We're not living some illusion and getting distracted. And so really the part of the past life sequencing, the process that I work with is the soul retrieval. And the assumption behind that is that some part of us, of our essence, call it soul, spirit, the authentic self, our true self, our highest self, some aspect of us has been fractured. And it's like in our sphere, but it's not we're not embodying it. And so we may carry that as a pain in the body or an awful memory or a recurring dream or something like that. We need to retrieve that and make peace and reintegrate it because something went missing. We lose vitality. We lose a sense of innocence, courage, that kind of tenderness or self-love that we could give ourselves. It slipped away in another lifetime. And we're retrieving it. We're bringing it back so that we can integrate it. And often the integration doesn't happen in the session. The integration happens later when a person says, "Oh, I found it very difficult to speak up. That's what this spear represented. And I don't have to do that anymore. And I might have a memory, a kind of a habitual way of doing that I can be much more aware of that when I begin to do that. I say, oh, I don't have to do that anymore, do I? I can let that go.
So that the awareness, just making sure you're aware of it. We've had a few comments and questions, so I'll kind of sneak this one in. Thoughts on organ transplants with soul memory? ?
Oh, that's a good, I don't know. There's some fascinating, actually, mini-series on Netflix that talk about that.
Is there?
Yeah.
My daughter has her father's kidney.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. About a young man that died. And I think it's a Korean film, beautiful film. He dies and they take his heart and transplant it to another man. And then he meets this guy's soulmate in real life.
Wow.
And she, it's an instant familiarity and she can't understand why.
So there's something to that.
Yeah. But I don't know. That's a fascinating question. I don't know. I wonder if there's something there. Why not?
They pick up trait. I can tell you only this because my daughter, my husband is her dad and gave her his kidney. And she did become more sarcastic. I'm not lying and I'm not trying to make a joke. Her sarcasm is over the top like his. Her personality, there's some traits there and some food cravings that have changed with her.
That's crazy, isn't it?
So I said, couldn't they have been mine? Because of course I have all the good ones, right? But couldn't they have been mine? Like, why are they his? But I did notice that. So I wonder about, other things I wouldn't notice because we're family. But I wonder about people who
have had transplants.
There's so many stories about it that
why not? Why may it not happen at the physiological level? It happens as a psychological level. We were talking about the inherited lovelessness sequence that we all experience. That stuff's getting transplanted to us.
Yes,
these things get passed down for generations.
Absolutely, because if you can get when you're receiving an organ, you're receiving their genetic code, you're receiving their viruses because they hold in, say, the kidney or the liver. So why wouldn't you be able to receive their past life memories?
I think it's a plausible thing.
I love it.
Phenomena. Yeah.
I think that's your next book.
There you go.
What about savants?
Savants.
People who come back and are unbelievable musicians, for example.
Yes.
They're a child who's playing like bloody Beethoven.
Yes.
A
Yeah.
savant. Yeah.
You know that, why not? That those skills, those tendencies could have carried over from a prior life, and they're
Yes.
determined to come in, and that's part of the pre-planning process.
Mm.
Is I had some unfinished business. I Mozart want to come in and complete my mission, and in so doing, I will affect many other people. And
Mm.
there's because those are enormous kinds of life missions.
Mhm.
But why not? Why I think
Yeah.
that's part of our mission. When I talked about purpose, that's that sense of fulfillment that we get, that we're on our path, and
Mhm.
that things seemingly fall into place. We call them synchronicities. We meet the right
Mm. Yes.
people. We
Yes.
have the right moments, even though we're frustrated with timing and it's not happening. But boom, the right moment comes, unbeknownst to our logical brain. How that could have happened? It happens because we are on our purpose, and we're sincere, and we're living our life, and our essence is being expressed, and it's powerful.
Yeah.
So mission is the determination to complete something.
Mhm.
That could be different than purpose. So it could be on our path. The purpose path gets us there. That was the case with my writing Longing. Is
Mhm.
I learned through working with the medium that I was to write a book, and this book was to be given to me, that it would essentially be channeled by my spirit guides.
Mm.
And I and they said, we will provide it to you. You must open. So I didn't. It was COVID. It was it
Mm.
was end of 2019. My father had just passed December 20th. My mother was in hospice and would pass May 5th of 2020.
Oh my God.
And
My dad's birthday, 90th,
is it
May 5th, 2020.
May 19th?
May 5th,
Oh,
2020
my
was my
gosh.
dad's
Oh, wow.
90th birthday, and I lost him that year.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, my mother's date of passing. So, I didn't go for that. I'm a trained researcher. So,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
through the research. And I said,
Nice.
well, I'm going to research the higher levels of human consciousness. And I'm going to go, and I pulled down all the great recent human development theory and consciousness theory, and had myself a great time reviewing all this stuff and doing a background literature review. And I was quite proud of myself, and got back with Veronica, with Victoria. Veronica's another character in my past, but Victoria says, no, you're doing it wrong. No, they say, stop doing that. We told you it would come to you. While all of that is good, need to know stuff, that's not your book. Open to this. Get yourself into a trance state, and it will come. So, being a lifelong meditator, and a bit defiant, I said, okay, let's see. I get my tablet of paper and a pen. COVID, where are you going to go? It's February in Rocky Mountains, and it's cold, dark. I lay down on the floor. I go, what? Let's go. And I got myself in my trance state, and lo and behold, I write a poem. It's one of the first entries in the book. It's called Begin. So I completed that, and then I continued to write prose, and my hand was just going. I was having a ball, and going on and on and on, and filled up a tablet of paper, and this continued on for some 2 weeks. I got back with Victoria, and they said, now you're on it. Now you're on it. You are completing your life mission. You came into this existence knowing you were going to write the book of this nature. So then they gave me other tips and suggestions. But then later, and more affirmation around this, later I asked for some book endorsements. I mentioned Robert Schwartz, one of my favorite authors on pre-life planning. And he said, I'll read your transcript. I'll let you know if I can do it within the next couple of months. 2 days later, I got his email back, and he said, I've read your book, and I had time, and here's your endorsement. And by the way, congratulations on fulfilling your life mission.
Wow.
And I said,
Oh, that is awesome.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So we have those. And if ever, my advice is to look for the signs. If there's something that you would love to do, maybe for some reasons or another, you've been putting it off and rationalizing why you couldn't do it. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough, or I don't have the time or the money. That's probably your mission knocking on the door. Not all of us have them. And Michelle, yours could be this podcast, this revelation of voices, bringing voices into the world. So it's a delivery of some kind.
Oh, one of many, many deliveries. Yeah. Yes, that's okay.
Yeah.
This is the one. Yeah, I have fun with at least.
Yeah. But I just want to say one other thing about life purpose.
Yes.
If I could give humanity 2 gifts, it would be that everyone would be tied and understanding and committed to their life purpose, fulfillment of their life purpose, and know how to love their self. And self-love would be that second gift. What more do you need?
I agree. Yeah. Life is a journey.
Life is a journey.
And it's a state of evolution.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Question, do you think that we are evolving currently?
I think that some people are evolving currently. I believe there are many who, here's how I look at it, Christopher. You got point A and point B. Some people go from point A to point B. Other people kind of go like this and around and zigzag and, oh, it's a squirrel. And they stop for a minute and they come back. They get back on the trail and they keep going, which I think is great. We all end up at the same place. And there's people who sidetrack with the people who have these incredible experiences because they take the time to play with the squirrel. And then there were those who are just, nope, I'm on that mission. I have, the tunnel vision, right?
Yes.
So essentially, we all arrive at different times. And sometimes a lot of people get left behind who you think, you're always going to be in a life path, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's a significant other. There are a whole lot of different things. And recognizing the synchronicities, as you say, you spoke of something in your book about recognizing perhaps other people. One time in my life where I've actually looked into somebody else's eyes, and in a split moment, I wasn't even in the same room. I was with that soul somewhere else, and it flashed, and I came out of it, and I was disoriented. I was like, what just happened?
What did happen?
I don't know, but I was someplace else for a split second, and I looked around, and I'm like, and just from looking in one individual's eyes, close enough where you're just like,
put that on the list.
It was, it was the craziest thing that ever happened to me with another individual.
Yes. Well, that'd be something to reflect on, and you could. There's if you stay curious about that, there's lots of ways to get answers to that.
Yeah.
But I do think that we are undergoing a transformation that's fairly ripe. It's happening. Yeah. It's kind of easy to say that, but one of the data points I've had is when I began writing Longing, I looked at the receptivity. Like, who would this book be for? So one of my reliable research sources for current sociological research is the Pew Foundation, Pew Foundation. So I went to their website. They had a whole, and they update this constantly. They had a whole section on SBNR, spiritual but not religious, as a trend. People moving away from the dogma of prescribed religious sects or orders, whatever we want to call them, and moving into finding spirit within, a very Buddhist kind of concept, right? That's what Jesus was ultimately teaching, is the kingdom is in here. The peace is here. Yes. And all the rest of it was metaphor. And then, of course, those that had the last word on the Bible contorted it and made it. And actually, I submit that the most spiritual person of all that lifetime in Jesus's path was Mary Magdalene, but they wrote her out of the Bible. But we are in this place of awakening and letting go of dogma, but in fact, gravitating more toward finding spirit in the natural, everyday, ordinary experience of being human. And this past life regression, pre-life planning, all of this is part of this greater awareness that is pretty mainstream as it is. And so once we hit the tipping point of some 20 to 30% of us, which is very close in the making, then we're going to see a lot of change. It's already being brewed. And not to bore you too much with theory, but that was one of the gifts that Thomas Kuhn offered in his book, The Revolution of, or the Structure of Scientific Revolution, when he talked about these paradigm shifts. He was the one that coined that phrase. Yeah. And he said that across physics, the grandmother of all science, there were these fundamental changes that happened where at a higher level, at the new physics level, the rest of it seemed kind of trite. How could we possibly believe that? And those changes didn't necessarily happen gradually. We didn't all start moving in the direction of this new mindset. It happened suddenly. But there was this sort of brewing beneath, and it all looked like, the other way was just fine. Everybody's kind of solving the puzzles in that old mindset. And then boom, something happened and blew it apart. And we had a whole different way of looking at things. And I believe that that's happening now due to spirituality.
I agree. I agree with you. I do. I think now is the time. Question: why would it be important for someone to do a previous life regression? And
because it is healing. Ultimately, that's hands down the reason. And at our onset of our conversation, I talked about when all else you have done, you've done the good work, you've done your therapy, you've done your meditation, you've done your yoga, you've done your psychoanalysis, your psilocybin assisted therapeutic journeys. You've done all of that. You've gone on your spiritual retreats, but the stuff, there's certain things that just keep returning. The themes continue to return. That's where past life regression comes in. So we'll get to it that way because it's hidden in the subconscious. It's accessible, I should say, through the subconscious. The subconscious is the pathway through because soul speaks through symbols, metaphors, intuition, felt sense. We're not going to get to it through daily conversations or analysis. We're going to go to the source, and the source is essence. It's going to provide us through that pool of the intuitive self or the subconscious self. That's powerful work. And so when you've done all the other work or you're ready for the depth, that's where past life regression is extremely valuable.
And how can they find you?
Oh, yes. First of all, as you can see, I love to have these conversations. So if you want to drop me an email, my email address is Chris, CHRIS, at livelifesoul.com. Chris at livelifesoul.com. My website is livelifesoul.com. That's a quick and easy way to do it. I'm going to have some, get very active on Meta, active on YouTube. So you can always find me through those ways as well. But a direct email or an email through my website, I'll be happy to respond.
There, we put your website in the
thank you
in the chat room. You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for posting the cover there of Longing. It is available for pre-order. You can find the multiple routes, the obvious one being Amazon. But if you go to the Simon & Schuster website, you'll find other routes of purchasing pre-ordering Longing, and you can order through your local bookstore.
There we go. So it's different avenues where you guys can all do this. And everyone in chat, thank you all very much for tuning in with us this evening. And Christopher, thank you.
Michelle, you're so welcome. Thank you. And Amelia, thank you. And I'm so glad to have met you.
I
Yes.
appreciate you indulging us.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you
thank you.
so much. I get carried away with
Aw.
this topic, and
Thank you.
it's always
you.
great to speak to someone like you, because it's not often that you get, to speak with someone so experienced and who just has a gentle side of it, and your energy is beautiful. I would trust you
Well,
without
thank you for your
hesitation,
acknowledgement. I appreciate
you
that.
know.
Thank you.
And everyone else, tomorrow night, new time, 8:00 p.m. with Giulio Consiglio. This time we're talking about UFOs, and we're talking.
Oh,
I know, yeah. His guy sees them all the time, so I'm kind of like,
wow.
wow, yeah. So I don't know. So anyway, his book, Cosmic Contact: Spiritual Insights into Triangular UFOs, ET Communication, and Counter Preparation, sounds like a whole lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it for one. So anyway, thank you all. You've been listening to The Outer Realm on United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Big thank you to our sponsors, Folgers Coffee, Justin Snicker, Steve McGinnis. We love and appreciate you all. And to our chat family, thank you again, Christopher. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
And good night, everyone.
Good night.